Last Sunday, when I got home from Masses in the afternoon, I was looking at the New York Times book section. And you know what I found in the nonfiction section of the bestseller list? I found that 8 of the top 10 share a common theme. One's about recent research on aging and longevity. Another is about how trauma affects the body and mind. Others were about personal stories dealing with very difficult situations. Then there was one by the Duke of Essex, who detailed his struggles, including the loss of his mom. Do you notice anything in common? 80% of the top 10 bestsellers have something to do with spirituality. The interior life. I have a friend who recently signed up to receive daily brief meditations that come by email in the morning. And she told me, it's the first thing I read when I get to work. I take a breath, I read, I reflect for a minute, and then I get to the other 100 emails waiting for my immediate response. It's crazy, she said. My day has begun, but that moment's reflection helps keep my head about me. Gives me central focus on how I relate to my coworkers and my work. It is crazy, isn't it? How busy life is. How much comes at us each day. There is so much to distract us and keep us from paying attention to what's really going on in our lives. So says an article on spirituality written a while back in, of all places, the Wall Street Journal. That article was entitled "The Sounds of Silence," and it was all about just what the title suggests. It lamented the loss of our interior lives, the absence of silence, because we are so distracted all the time by noise, especially produced by electronic diversions. You know what I'm talking about. Smartphones, Alexa and Siri, smart TVs, video games. There's no escaping. Plus, there always seems to be surrounded by soundtracks and video displays which invade our space in stores and elevators and restaurants, all those other public places. Imagine a writer in the Wall Street Journal suggesting that we need more silence and solitude. Now, he said we don't have to become nuns or monks, but we do need conditions that help us sort things out. Because otherwise, we're distracted. And the more distracted we are, the more distracted we'll become. The bottom line is, we have to distinguish what is the idle chatter that is coming at us from the outside, misguiding us, throwing us off center, from what our true inner voice is saying to us. A voice that is trying to keep us focused and on center. Now, I know there weren't any cell phones or emails back in Jesus' time. But believe it or not, the people then were very much like us, also being drawn by competing sounds and voices. Every generation needs a voice that it can trust. And using the image of a caring, guiding shepherd, Jesus presents himself to us today as that trustworthy voice. He calls his disciples, That's also you and me. Huh? He calls his disciples to be attentive to his voice, separated from all the other voices that tug on us and draw us here and there. His voice, he says, will keep us together and also guide us on our journey. And using the image of the gospel today, his voice will be a guard against our coming in and going out. Because that pretty much describes our lives, doesn't it? We are all on a journey. There are very few periods when things are smooth and unchanging for long. We journey through childhood into adulthood, through changes in jobs and careers. We enter into and sometimes out of relationships. We pass through periods of health, and then illness, and then hopefully health again. And of course, there is that inevitable journey that we take from infancy to youth, to adulthood, to old age, and ultimately death. All along, we make choices. Some are well made, others we wish we could take back and do all over again. But there are a lot of voices out there that only distract and scatter us. They really don't care how or where we end up, or whether we wind up going around in circles. And maybe we've paid too much attention to them. Because I tell you, they don't have our best interests at heart. They don't care. As long as we buy what they're selling, or choose what everybody else chooses, or live with the same values of everybody else around us, and don't stand out in a crowd. But the shepherd, Jesus tells us, wants to gather us. He wants to give us a rest from futility and wasted energies. His voice can help keep our wits about us in this often misguided world. There is a lot to maneuver through in life. Lots of big and small decisions to make along the way. Some of those decisions are life-changing and can alter our lives, have long-term effects. So the real question is, what and who will help make us make these decisions? Where do we turn for clarity and consistency? Jesus is inviting us to be more attentive to him. Why? Because he has invested his life in us. He's dying to help us along life's journey. Our journey towards God. Our journey to become more trusting. Our journey to become more patient with others and ourselves. Our journey to become less controlling. And our journey to put the past behind us and start brand new. And our journey to become more forgiven.